somehow. I'll keep moving on. I won't stop now. I'll keep moving on till I reach the top somehow. I'll keep moving on. I won't stop now. I'll keep moving on till I reach the top somehow. I'll keep moving on.
Yes, my Straight Talk family, it is time for all of us to keep moving on, and time for me to welcome you to another edition of Straight Talk for today, Monday, the 25th day of September. And oh, how September has just rolled on, my Straight Talk family. So it's time for me to say a very special night to you here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course to all of you all over the world, including the Caribbean region, and of course the Kittitian and Nevisian diaspora, wherever you find yourselves at this particular moment. And if you're a first timer, I want to give you a special welcome. A special welcome to all the first timers. But before I do that, I must say good night to the diaspora, wherever you are. I can say good morning as well. I can as well say good afternoon, because one of such greetings will be applicable to the region in which you now find yourselves. You may be in Africa. You just may be in Asia. You may be in Europe. And certainly you may as well be all over North America. So again, greetings and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk. And to the first timers, I want to welcome you. Just to inform you that Straight Talk is a public service program that is heard every Monday and Thursday night from 8 to 10 in the PM. It's a public service program, and we try our very best against all the odds to facilitate and promote all issues of national interest, be they legal, be they environmental, be they technological, social, economic, and or political issues. On this program, you do have a forum to express yourselves freely. Let us try to raise the level of national consciousness in the process. Let us try to raise the level of national discourse by alerting our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I give Almighty God thanks for blessing me with yet another opportunity to join you in conversation on yet another occasion. And my Straight Talk family, we must ensure you, or I must ensure you rather as your host, that I remain an untiring advocate. I remain an untiring advocate of truthfulness. By that, and that I mean that nothing, absolutely nothing, is watered down on this program. Neither by way of omission or in any way through exaggeration to make it more interesting. We don't get sensational on this program. I can tell you that the truth sometimes could come across as being blunt. But that's what truth is. Truth goes to the very core of many things. But I consider it my duty, my bounden duty, to always present the unvarnished truth, in particular about governance in my country, my beloved country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I'm happy that the youth in particular are coming along. Some do not want me to name them. There's some who ask me to name them. And even a young Dwayne who can't even communicate verbally at this time. Or he does so rather in a particular way. He calls me Papa, Papa, Papa. So to his parents, the parents of Dwayne, we say good night, because we understand he, along with yourselves, listen to Straight Talk each time. And Tristan, I trust you are reminding your mom about Straight Talk every Monday and Thursday, Tristan, from over there in Tabernacle. Shama, my young son, or the son of my departed brother, OJ, over there in Frigate Bay. Trust you are doing well, back to school, and I've settled down, and so too. But Kevin Hanley over there in Nevis, you have gone to the CSS, that's the Charlestown Secondary School, as of this September. And I believe, and I trust and hope as well, that you are now settled down and focusing on that opportunity. The opportunity to go to the secondary level. Because we only get these opportunities once in our life, you know. You can only go to primary school once in your life. And you go to secondary school once in your life. You can perhaps at the tertiary level go back many times. So I always like to implore you to use that opportunity you have at this time to the best of your ability. And I must say, it's my duty to say a special good night to a special lady in St. Louis. That's all she wants to know, and we know who she is. The Queen over there in Texas. Yes, Queen from Newtown in Texas. Don't worry about the special lady. Betty in St. Thomas, and all over the Caribbean. If I really start to name, I'll omit quite a lot of names, and I'll perhaps be here for a long time. So I want to say good night. I've been forgetting Montserrat for a long time. Montserrat, please forgive me. And Nevis at NASPA, the NASPA security. I haven't hailed you for a long time, but I remember you as well, the NASPA, and here at Casper too. And all the security, wherever you are the ones who keep eyes on things when we are all locked away or fast asleep doing something else. And on a sad note, I want to extend condolences to Massive Penny and the Penny family, because a Straight Talk learned of the untimely passing of your sister Joyanne, I think is her name, over the weekend. And we just wish to extend condolences to your brothers and your sister in this time of your bereavement. And I can't help but to repeat what I've said on so many occasions, that Jimmy Cliff sang a famous song to Who Feels It Knows It. And when we lose loved ones, especially those that are so close to us, it is hard to explain. And I can tell you anything, extend my sympathy, I can say all sorts of things. But One thing I like to impart to you is something that someone touched me with. Someone who touched me with when I was bereaved at the time. This elderly gentleman put his hand on my shoulder when my mom died. I was crying like a little child, and he said, "Death is a process." So I'll just pass that on to you as well. And all who have lost loved ones, we extend our sincere condolences. And through death, there's also life. And we must thank God for milestones. And there's a special milestone being celebrated by my dear sister, by another mother, Paulette Samuel. I understand you're celebrating today. And all who are celebrating, we extend best wishes. And we pray that God would bless you with many more opportunities to move from milestone to milestone, even at this time in your lives. These times are difficult, my Straight Talk family, very difficult times here. And we normally move right into our observations and review. And just to inform you that our thesis for tonight is titled A Book of Lies by Mark Brantley. And we'll come with the details just after we move through our observations in review. And I've taken time to ensure that we document these observations because it's the time when we highlight the issues of the day and we do some reflection. We may then ask a few questions such as what was accomplished having raised those observations, how has it helped others, what has changed since, and what can be expected next. Also, what new we have learned as a people. We have raised many issues, much to the disgust of many of us. We have not had any response to these issues from our leaders in particular. But we are not going to give up. And just our first observation, I should say rather, is one that's congratulatory in nature, in that we want to extend congratulations to the fans, supporters of the Guyana Amazon Warriors for lifting the CPL T20 Championship trophy in 2023. The Warriors waited for 10 years, having been to the finals 5 times. And at all those 5 times, they came runner-up. They were beaten in the finals. And I saw the captain, is it Tahir? He cried. He got so emotional last night that he cried. Big man crying. But he lifted the trophy for the first time in Providence, Guyana, as the captain of the first-time champions. And we congratulate all you Guyanese and all who are fans of the Guyana Amazon Warriors. You know, many of us been fans of Guyana for a long time, since in the Clive Lloyd and the Lance Gibbs and the Shanda Paul days, and the list goes on. Kanai, you know, they always produce good cricketers, we know. Although our cricketers, quote unquote, gone down the drain. But T20 cricket, it is said, is the biggest party in sport. And who would believe that St. Kitts Nevis will not host one single match in the upcoming T20 World Cup in 2024? The Drew Labour administration did not provide any support, we are told, for the Cricket Association. And that, my Straight Talk family, it is sad. And I read an article in the St. Kitts Nevis Observer today, written by young LaShawn Dixon, who wrote this compelling article under the caption, "The ball dropped St. Kitts Nevis to miss out on millions for T20, my Straight Dog family. And he wrote, very interesting, my Straight Dog family, that St. Kitts and Nevis was left off the list of venues for the 2024 T20 World Cup, which will be held in the Caribbean, of course, and some matches in the USA. And this was announced last week by the International Cricket Council, the ICC. And the article reads, my Straight Dog family, you can see that for yourselves, that the 7 Caribbean locations for the T20 World Cup 2024 matches will be Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Guyana, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, according to the ICC. My Straight Dog family, the omission of St. Kitts and Nevis has left many cricket fans and those who love sport, and sports enthusiasts, according to the article, are questioning the rationale for the non-selection, or for the non-bidding, I should say. And apart from those facts, my Straight Dog family, apart from those facts, that I just mentioned, the Minister of Sport, Samuel Duggins, I try to reflect because I've been following cricket for a long time. He wouldn't believe that I was one time president of the St. Kitts Cricket Association. Believe it or not. You know me around football. Yes, I was secretary for about 10 successive years. And all my time I gave to football. But I have never attended, or I cannot recall whether Samuel Duggins ever attended a cricket match. And he and his cabinet colleagues obviously overlooked the economic benefits that can be derived from a T20 World Cup match. A T20 World Cup match or matches would have had a cascading effect on the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis, the grassroots economy in particular. The hotels, the restaurants, the taxi drivers, name them all. And it's difficult to quantify the monies that can be derived from undertaking such an exercise here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And you wouldn't believe, and I say this respectfully, here's the nonsense stated by Minister Samuel Duggins, who told the reporters this.
Well, what I could say about the World Cup next year is that the World Cup is a dynamic series of events, and we may definitely see some events here in St. Kitts, while we may not have the structured matches as some may want. We will see some activity from the World Cup here in St. Kitts. It's not a case where St. Kitts and Nevis dropped the ball, but what is required to host ICC World Cup. And the way we met our facilities and the conditions that they were in coming into office last year, and the short time frame that would have been required to get them compliant with the World Cup standard, it was just too short of a time frame. And so we had to settle for what we can achieve.
I mean, real nonsense. And again, trying to apportion blame to their predecessors. Now, my Straight Dog family, the T20 World Cup is scheduled to be hosted by the West Indies and the United States from the 4th of June to the 30th of June 2024, next year. So when they got into office, they had literally 2 years to prepare for this eventuality. Well, how much more time did the Jew administration need? And frankly speaking, in the private sector, every one of these experts in the cabinet, in the private sector, they would have been fired for their incompetence. And I say so respectfully. Tonight as well, we will follow up in our second observation on our discussion which we broached last week in relation to Social Security. In particular, in respect of what has been reported by Dr. Drew, our Prime Minister, who is also the current Minister with responsibility for this very important institution in St. Kitts and Nevis. And my Straight Talk family, it is important, an institution, and we don't have to try to justify that. Because Social Security is what I call an insurance scheme that protects us. It indemnifies us against loss of earnings. Some people like to say it's a pension scheme. I don't necessarily agree, my Straight Talk family. But the Social Security scheme, as I said, it is very, very important to all of us, especially those who look forward to retirement and, as I said, loss of earnings sometime in the future. In everything that Dr. Drew has said and or done since taking office in August 2022, my Straight Talk family, he has been economic with the truth, but put bluntly, he has lied from time to time. Dr. Drew has told us, for example, about the Development Bank and its debt to Social Security of $120 million. But he has said nothing, absolutely nothing, about the $133 million owed by the National Housing Corporation. He has said absolutely nothing about the $34.6 million owed by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, I think it's called, the NHLDC in Nevis, or the $47.2 million owed by the Nevis Island Administration. Worse yet, Dr. Drew has been mum, silent, on the debt owed by Christopher Harbour for contributions on behalf of its employees in the amount of $5.7 million. He has said nothing whatsoever about Christopher Harbour, my Straight Talk family, that owes and has not paid into the Social Security Fund some $5.7 million. And Drew has also been silent on the offer made by Christopher Harbour to what I call barter with the Social Security Board, and has offered to settle the arrears in contribution via a transfer of land, which the Social Security Board, we are told, cannot sell or transfer that land to anyone without the express permission of Christopher Harbour. But my Straight Talk family, if you think that the latter is bad, it gets even worse, my Straight Talk family. It gets even worse as Dr. Drew has not told the country as well that Mark Brantley and his CCM Island administration owes the Social Security Board, owes the fund millions of dollars in contributions, my Straight Talk family. And I like to point to the legislation, because the legislation is pellucid. The legislation is clear as it relates to the contributions that has to be paid, must be paid by all and sundry, all employers, I should say, my Straight Talk family. The legislation is very clear. I'll share it with you momentarily. I will share this bit of legislation with you momentarily, my Straight Talk family. I'll share the excerpt, rather, with you. Just give me a few seconds and I will do just that, my Straight Talk family. Because Section 49 of the Social, excuse me, Section 49 of the Social Security Act relates to proceedings for it relates to proceedings, my Straight Talk family, in relation to employers' default, right? In terms of the benefits lost by employers. And the section of the Act is very clear. It reads, and I quote, where any employer, or where an employer rather, has failed or neglected to pay any contribution which he or she is liable to pay in respect of or on behalf of any insured person, and by reason of such failure or neglect, such person or any person becomes disentitled to any benefit or entitled to a benefit on a lower scale, the board may, on being satisfied that the contribution should have been paid by the employer, the board may pay to the person, beg your pardon, or the other person's benefit at the rate to which he or she would have been entitled if the failure or neglect had not occupied or had not occurred, beg your pardon, and the board shall be entitled to recover summarily in a magistrate's court from the employer as a civil debt a sum equal to the amount of benefit so lost, irrespective of the amount. It goes on in subsection 2. Proceedings may be taken under this section, notwithstanding that proceedings have been taken under any other provision of this Act in respect of the same failure, my Straight Talk family. But what is this piece of legislation telling us? Should the NIA or should the Social Security Board take the NIA to court? Is that how we interpret it? But Mark Brantley is fully aware that his administration has made Social Security deductions, beg your pardon, from its employees. But it has failed to pay monies that they deducted into the Social Security Fund. What kind of man is Mark Anthony Brantley? His administration, again, has made Social Security deductions from its employees, the civil servants, and has failed to pay those deductions, those deduction monies into the Social Security Fund. That cannot be disputed. And all communications to the NIA have been summarily ignored by Brantley. All have been summarily ignored. He has said, and he has taken he has said nothing. He just has ignored all the communications, my straight dog family, that has been sent to the NIA by the Nevis section of the Social Security, my straight dog family. He has said nothing. He has not even provided the courtesy of a response. How could Mark Brantley be so heartless, my straight dog family? How could he be, my straight dog family? He should not be. How could he be so heartless, I ask? And we must ask that question. Why has his administration continue to deduct or make deductions and have not matched the contributions? They not only make deductions, but his administration must match the contributions that have been deducted by straight dog family. And he has not done that. And that is criminal, I dare say. That is criminal. And Mark Brantley, my straight dog family, and his administration ought to be ashamed of the way they are doing business in government. And this letter dated 2022, written to the Nevis Island administration. It says, "Dear sir, please find attached a copy of your liability statement which outlines your obligations to the Social Security Board. A quick reference breakdown is also provided below, showing the outstanding details for the outstanding monies owed to Social Security levy and as well severance. And that total owed by the NIA, my straight dog family, is over $9 million. $9 million. So why has Dr. Terence Michael Jew, as minister, why hasn't he said anything to Mark Brantley? Why has he just latched on to the development bank? Why not the CCM-led island administration? And Mark Brantley and the CCM-led island administration rents the Social Security building in Charlestown at a peppercorn rent of $1 per square foot, which is about $10.50 less than what was recommended as the rental value. And yet the NIA is also in millions of dollars in arrears in rent. So how could Mark Brantley speak about leadership? Mark Brantley cannot speak about leadership as he has no leadership acumen, to use a soft word. Our third observation, my straight dog family, relates to the recent murder on Saturday night. Saturday gone. Murder number 22 for 2023. And it would sadden any one of us, my straight dog family. It ought to sadden any one of us, because Terence Michael Jew, when he took over the reins of minister with responsibility for national security, crime was on the down low, to use a term which I think we all would understand. But another young man was gunned down hours after Dr. Jew took to the podium at the 78th United Nations General Assembly in New York. And he went there to blame the US for what they call the proliferation of guns, my straight talk family, in our beloved country. But he went there to blame the US for the guns, my straight talk family. And this is what he said at the podium at UNGA.
We aspire to create a society where our people can live in safety and security. However, we are plagued by the scourge that is the proliferation of illicit and untraceable weapons flowing into our region. We cannot win this fight against the guns on our own. International cooperation is necessary if we are to ensure the protection of our societies and our people.
My straight talk family, Dr. Drew would have made us believe in recent times that crime and violence needs a scientific approach. This is what he said.
I went to a symposium as the Prime Minister, and also as the Minister of National Security in Trinidad, where we sought to look at crime and violence from a public health perspective. It is a broad concept, but is a concept that has been well studied scientifically and will deliver results. As I speak, my advisor, Dr. Patrick Martin, would have met with the press to further explain what this is. And the task force has been put together for us to deal with it. An aspect of it is an all-society approach. But this time, we will apply the scientific approach to it so that we can achieve what we want to achieve.
My straight talk family, Dr. Drew inherited a situation with crime last August at an all-time low. And he made that confession himself.
We are happy that crime statistics have continued to be at an all-time low, particularly in terms of gang-related homicides. The Ministry of National Security has set as a target the downward trend in homicide from the previous 15-year low of 10 to a single digit. A target is also set for improving the major crime detection rate by 15%.
He has set a target to bring crime into single digits, having inherited a situation with crime at an all-time low. There were 10 homicides when he took over the reins of, or at the helm of the Ministry of National Security and Prime Minister. My straight dog family, sadly, since taking office and assuming the role of Minister of National Security, crime has spiraled and homicides or murders under his watch has moved now to 30 murders under the watch of Dr. Terence Michael Drew. But Dr. Drew has engaged his once political advisor, Maureen Weber from Jamaica, a former PNP member, I think she was. And she, along with his permanent secretary, Naima Hazel, have continued, my straight dog family, have continued to tinker with the peace initiative which they met while or when they got into office. They promised all sorts of things. They promised Social Security to be paid for these men. And one asked me to ask Dr. Drew and his team, when will they pay social security for the young men. But the facts are, the quote-unquote Elevate program is purely academic and has not improved the crime situation, which they continue to deal with in a casual or desultory way, meaning it is lacking a plan. So the only result in his nigh 40 months in office, as I said before, there have been 30 murders in this country. The latest one occurred on Saturday night, according to Mervyn Thompson of ZIZ TV News. This is what she reported. A Straight Talk family.
The police are investigating another homicide. In a note to media, they said, quote, just before 10 p.m. on Saturday, September 23rd, the police received notification from the JNF General Hospital that a man presented there with gunshot injuries. The male, who was later identified as Deonja Finley of St. Peter's, received emergency treatment but later died, end quote. Investigations into the cause of his injuries are therefore ongoing.
My Straight Talk family, there's also an issue as I move to my fourth observation, but it's not good news as it relates to crime and violence under this new Labour administration. But moving on to our fourth observation, there is an issue that I know some politicians will find uncomfortable discussing. And that issue is the recognition of the Republic of China and Taiwan at the United Nations General Assembly. It is an issue that boggles the minds of many who have difficulty imagining or accepting that such will ever be possible. I don't ever recall, though, that Kittians and Nevisians have ever been told by any of our leaders why we support the Republic of China and Taiwan instead of the People's Republic of China. And I raise this matter without any motive whatsoever, except to educate our people with respect to international relations in the context of geopolitics, because after 40 years as an independent country, we must ask ourselves, is it time to closer examine our foreign policy to better understand it, rather, also to be able to predict international political behavior of our leaders and the leaders of countries that are our friends and our allies. I heard, for example, Comrade Ralph Gonzalez at UNGA on Saturday, who said this, my Straight Talk family.
We urge the United States of America, our friend, the most powerful and economically dominant country since the dawn of human civilization. It is long overdue for the Republic of China, Taiwan to be brought in from the diplomatic cold. The magnificent Chinese civilization, through the fever of history, has delivered to the contemporary world in practical terms more than one recognizable national political expression institutionally. Surely, Taiwan's quest for participation in relevant specialized agencies of the United Nations is reasonable and ought to be accommodated. Repeatedly, Taiwan has shown itself to be a responsible member of the international community. Peace across the Taiwan Straits is an imperative for the prosperity and security of the world.
Our own Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, my Straight Talk family, had this to say about Taiwan's exclusion from these world or international bodies.
Speaking to the issue of governments and peoples who are excluded from the full participation within the United Nations and the global multilateral systems. I recall the situation of Taiwan. Taiwan has proven itself to be a reliable development partner, which greatly contributes to collective efforts to address the pressing global issues of today. It is our firm belief that Taiwan should be able to make its contribution to the work and budget of multilateral institutions such as the United Nations and the World Health Assembly in furtherance of the common global goals. And it is a hope that the right of its 23 million people to adequate representation can be realized.
My Straight Talk family, not as eloquently put as Comrade Ralph Gonzalez, but the facts are that 52 years ago, the United Nations General Assembly, via Resolution 2758, declared, my Straight Talk family, that the General Assembly, having considered restoration of the lawful rights of the People's Republic of China in essential both for the protection of the Charter of the United Nations and the cause that the United Nations must serve under the Charter. The resolution stated, recognizing that the representatives of the government of the People's Republic of China are the only lawful representatives of China to the United Nations, and that the People's Republic of China is one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. That's an excerpt of what you would have read on your screens, my Straight Talk family. But while many governments have left to recognize the one China principle, sever the so-called diplomatic ties with the Taiwan authorities and re-establish its diplomatic relations with China, St. Kitts Nevis has remained a true friend of Taiwan over the last 40 years. To many observers, Taiwan's reunification with the mainland is inevitable, it's unavoidable, and China would not renounce the option of using military force to bring it into the fold. On the basis of the one China principle, China has established official diplomatic relationships with 178 member countries of the United Nations. The list, my Straight Talk family, of countries with diplomatic ties to Taiwan continues to dwindle. And you can glean from the list, my Straight Talk family, there are some 13 countries, namely from Latin America and the Caribbean, Belize, Guatemala, Paraguay, Haiti, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. From the Pacific, the Marshall Islands, Nauru, Palau, Tuvalu are those having diplomatic ties with Taiwan. And from Africa, Eswatini, and from Europe, the Vatican City, which are observers to the United Nations, my Straight Talk family. The U.S. maintains maintained its recognition of Taiwan for 3 decades after the Chinese Civil War, but eventually switched in 1979, 8 years after the United Nations granted Beijing China's seat as a permanent member of the Security Council. Washington has continued to uphold informal political ties to Taipei, however, and has continued to provide Taiwan with military assistance, something that has deeply angered China, which has threatened to reunify what is viewed, or what it viewed rather, as a renegade province. They threatened to reunify them by force, if necessary. Chinese President Xi has intensified his country's naval activities, including in the contested Taiwan Strait. He has also offered to reunify Taiwan under the terms of the same one country, two systems framework that applies to Hong Kong and Macau, two territories it granted semi-autonomous status after being returned by colonizers, the United Kingdom and Portugal respectively, at the end of the 20th century. And this is just some food for thought, my Stray Dog family. Only that, as we consider our Independence 40 reset. I know this is a topic that many wouldn't want to discuss, but on Straight Talk, we discuss everything. So we have full transparency, and we provide that level of understanding and information that can make or should allow you to make informed decisions. And my fifth observation, there's also plenty of talk about transparency and accountability. And there was this pledge from Dr. Ju.
We made a pledge to govern with transparency, and we intend to continue to keep that pledge.
My Straight Talk family, in spite of this pledge, Dr. Ju has done the opposite. When asked questions, for example, about the number of passports sold under the CBI, he has provided not one answer. You have heard just for the prison project, there's some 10 or 15,000 CORs, that is certificates of registration, have been signed by him. Yet he has failed to answer this elementary question.
Good morning, Lushan Dixon, St. Kitts Nevis Observer. Mr. Prime Minister, when you first got elected, you promised that your admin would implement principles of good governance, integrity in public life, transparency, and accountability. Since November, the Observer had been asking about the number of passports issued to date under the CBI program and the certificates of registration you signed since taking office. We have been informed that over 30,000 passports have been sold under the CPI in total. This will concern the population of 55,000 here in St. Kitts and Nevis. What is your response to these claims?
He has no response, or has made no response. And my Straight Talk family, the cost of the CBI dividends paid, including the cost of the workers' reset, they are state secrets. Yet Ju talks about transparency. Dr. Ju announced that they have renegotiated the solar farm, for example. He said this to the nation.
We want to get away from fossil fuel and go to renewable energy, because renewable energy is the way out. It does not go up and down. That is why we have renegotiated the solar plant and looking for other opportunities.
Nothing so far from the truth, my Straight Dog family. or put bluntly, a blatant lie. Yes, we know that Dr. Drew is looking for other opportunities. But we only found that out because the president of the Afrexim Bank made this announcement in Barbados about a month or two ago.
Well advanced or in discussions in the CARICOM include the development of solar and geothermal energy plants in St. Kitts and Nevis amounting to $100 million by SWD Electric.
And that announcement came from the president of the Afrexim Bank when the office was opened in Barbados. In the meantime, Dr. Drew is quiet on this important fiscal issue, my Straight Talk family. But we've heard from the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, who was answering a question in Parliament. And it was so refreshing to see that there's a question time in Parliament in Antigua, not so in St. Kitts. But this is what or how Gaston Brown responded to this question.
Will the Prime Minister update this Honourable House on any progress made on talks with African Exim Bank, reforging a partnership with Antigua and Barbuda?
Mr. Speaker, one of the things about this administration is that we are very nimble. We are almost invariably a first mover within the Caribbean, practically in every issue. So when the Exim Bank engaged the Antigua or the Caribbean region, we commenced negotiations with the Afri-Exim Bank to secure a loan of $100 million for the airport authority to repair the airport because it's in need of repairs. During the negotiations, the terms that they offered us, Mr. Speaker, are as follows. They offered a concessional interest rate, and I emphasize the term concessional, probably oxymoronic, but a concessional interest rate of 12% with a 4% negotiating fee. In fact, I'm told that companies like Earpiece and so on, when they borrow their hundreds of millions of dollars from the Afri-Exim Bank, they pay up to 25% interest. So I have to tell you that the Afri-Exim Bank interest rate model does not work for us. Therefore, we had to decline going any further with them, maybe more than probably 2%. And this is how responsible we've been. We always shop for best value for the people of Antigua and Barbuda. So I'm saying all that to say that I do not consider the terms of the Afri-Exim Bank to be in keeping with the requirements of my administration. I don't know if there are other Caribbean governments that will want to borrow 12%, but certainly not this administration. We do not play fast and loose with public resources. We make sure that we get good value for money. And on that basis, I do not see borrowing from the Afri-Exim Bank to be a viable option at this time.
Not a viable option for Antigua and Barbuda. But our government and our Prime Minister is silent on this important fiscal issue. But those are my observations in review for tonight, my Straight Talk family. And I spent some time on them, but I wanted to expose all these issues that we are facing. And as I hasten to move into my thesis for tonight, which I mentioned earlier that I have titled A Book of Lies by Mark Brantley. Because a few days ago, Mark Brantley made a very interesting revelation to all and sundry. To wit, he said that I am writing a book. He said,
I've heard a lot of chatter, and I don't really bother with the chatter because, as I said, in the fullness of time, some book will be written and people will have an opportunity to sit and read and understand all the dynamics that would work. The leader of NRP is out of touch, and one day, voila, handpicked. And we'll get that. That will be a chapter in my book as well in terms of who handpicked her. I know how this happened. I know there's 3 people who were involved. And the final decision rested not in Nevis, but in St. Kitts. And the truth is going to be told because Nevisians need to understand what has happened and what was happening. The decision on the NRP leader was made in St. Kitts, not in Nevis. They were required to just rubber stamp because that decision was made on high in exchange for promised funding for the election.
My Straight Talk family, based on the preamble to this book, which was provided by Mark Brantley on a radio program, in what can be described as the introductory and expressionary statement to this book, that explained the purpose and underlying philosophy of a fickle, unfaithful character who in the 16 years of political representation frequently changed his loyalties and our affections and turned his heels against his very own leader, the late Vance Winkworth Amory, who recruited him to the CCM only to find out that Mark Brantley was vulnerable to sudden, unpredictable changes of mood and or mind. The content of this book, predictably, will be laced with lies, and as such, no matter its title, I have taken the liberty to name it A Book of Lies by Mark Brantley. Given his current relationship with Dr. Drew, also the current fiscal situation in Nevis, unless things radically change, which can be expected from a character like Brantley, the author would never write, for example, that Brantley spent his whole political career fighting against the Labour Party, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. This he confessed, my Straight Talk family.
In my own country, I've spent a political career fighting against the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party and its wholly owned subsidiary in Nevis, the Nevis Reformation Party.
My Straight Talk family, a chapter would document that as leader of the opposition, he represented the current administration at a meeting in London upon the request of Dr. Drew. He also wrote, or will write, about meeting former Prime Minister and now Minister of Foreign Affairs, Denzel Douglas, on the flight to London, who was aware that Mark was attending the meeting, my Straight Talk family.
I went to London recently, and as would be the norm, I would reach out to the Prime Minister just to say that I would be out of country. And I indicated that there was a particular meeting that I had been invited to attend, at which some UK parliamentarians would also attend. And of course, we had just been greeted with the news that the UK had imposed visa restrictions on our brothers and sisters from Dominica. And naturally, there was a concern. And so I said to the Prime Minister that I would be having this meeting. And he immediately said to me, could you raise this issue? I will go further and say that Dr. Douglas and I, quite by accident, traveled on the same flight from Miami to London. I did not know he was on the flight. I assume he did not know that I was on the flight. Because it is only upon landing in London that we were departing the plane that I saw him and he saw me and we engaged with each other. He was merely transiting through London. But I used the opportunity to tell him about this meeting, and he said to me that he was aware and also gave it his blessings.
My Straight Talk family, Mark Brantley will never include in his book that he stood up in the National Assembly and told this blatant lie about Denzel Douglas. Here's what he said about Denzel Douglas in the National Assembly.
They say a passenger traveling outbound from Gatwick to Dubai on Emirates EK010 was detained with a large amount of cash. The passenger did not declare the cash. They ended up with a total of 78,000 US in cash, 9,000 pounds in cash, and 2,000 EC. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs for this country, here's where I'm concerned. They say that the money was seized under the provisions of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. Mr. Speaker, I have not been known to come in this house with foolishness, you know. I don't practice that. Serious matter. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, all of this was happening. When all of this was happening, and I said to myself, well, I wonder who this passenger was. Who could be this passenger? Who they're talking about? And here what they said, the passenger with the cash was identified through his passport as Mr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas. They didn't say Junior. They didn't say Junior. They said the passenger with the cash was identified through his passport as Mr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas.
And you know, my Straight Talk family, he gave the parliament the impression that Douglas could not go back to England, else he would be arrested. But he comes back just a couple of years after, and he's flying, or he's on the same flight with Douglas. Brantley would not include that in his book of lies. But Brantley would include the big geothermal lie to say that he did not know that the energy was being developed in St. Kitts. He will say that, my Straight Talk family. He would say that he did not know that the energy was being developed in St. Kitts. And St. Kitts has no resource. What a lie.
That in recent times I've met with foreign dignitaries and asking for support on this geothermal project. And I was told that they now need to see evidence and be persuaded that the federal government and the Nevis Island administration are on the same page. I thought that was a funny comment to make, so I inquired, well, why would you need to see that? We've always been on the same page. And they said, no. The government that I sat in as a cabinet member, that government in Bastia, unbeknown to me, was sending mixed signals that they wanted to explore their own geothermal in St. Kitts, and therefore were not in support of the project in Nevis as a national project. And I marveled at that, because the science showed that the resource in Nevis is the resource in the country. There is no resource in St. Kitts that's viable.
My Straight Talk family, what a big lie. A big lie, my Straight Talk family. Because on St. Kitts, we all know that a policy decision was taken to establish the resource on St. Kitts. And if it is established, we would develop that resource without retarding the progress on Nevis. Because we know of the legacy issues in Nevis that still exist today. And the source, surface studies were done, the geological studies, the geophysical studies, and the geotechnical studies, the 3D studies were done, my Straight Talk family. And you would recognize from that presentation on your screens that the resource estimate using the stored heat following the Australian Code of Power would then have a peer review. But the probabilistic estimation, my straight dog family, the resource estimation was between 18 to 36 megawatts. My straight dog family. And this was established after the 3G studies were done. So my straight dog family, we ask the question, if we have the resource on St. Kitts and the resource on Nevis, why should we develop one of them and not both? And to say that he was unaware that this resource existed on St. Kitts was such a blatant lie, which you won't find in his book, because he would never report, as the Observer reported way back in 2015, my straight dog family. And you can read for yourselves. Premier allays fears of St. Kitts killing Nevis geothermal. But that was Premier Amri. And it reads, Premier allays fears of the St. Kitts killing Nevis geothermal, my straight dog family. And it says Premier Vance Amri has attempted to assure Nevisians that St. Kitts pursuing geothermal does not mean the death of the Nevis geothermal endeavors. The federal government recently signed a memorandum of understanding with a Guadeloupe company to develop the national resource in St. Kitts. Premier Amri addressed the contentious issue during the 9th annual consultation on the economy held at the Nevis Performing Arts Center. And he said this, and I quote, as per the Observer, while you have heard that the federal government has signed an MOU with a company in Guadeloupe, it does not mean this is detrimental to the geothermal development in Nevis, he said. He said that the move by St. Kitts complements Nevis administration's efforts and will enable the Federation to have a larger geothermal resource. And that sounds like balance, my straight dog family. So if Nevis is raising pigs, should we not raise pigs on St. Kitts? If Nevis starts to plant coconuts right around the island, should we not plant coconuts in St. Kitts? What nonsense is Mark Brantley saying then, my straight dog family? But the late Premier Vance Amri understood that Mark Brantley is a selfish secessionist and would always want to control. So my straight dog family, I can go on and on, but his book would never include his blessings he preferred on Timothy Harris.
God bless Timothy. God bless Timothy. God bless Timothy.
His book would not include as well his praises showered on Timothy Harris.
Dr. Harris, congratulations, sir, on 5 years as a brilliant Prime Minister and steward of this country. And to my colleagues, I believe that we have all sought to do the best that we can, and that the successes that we've had could not have been possible without you and your support, without the grace of God and His support. And I would ask that we continue in that vein to stay steadfast, on course. We are on the right track with the right leadership to take this country forward and upwards.
Let's read, dog family. Mark Brantley is broke. He has run the NIA in Nevis broke. His economy is on the brink of collapse. The wage bill in Nevis is $8 million monthly. He has not, my street dog family, has not to date paid the Social Security, as I said before. He has, from time to time, my street dog family, said this about Timothy Harris. So many great things, he said, like this one, my street dog family. And we'll continue to hear these things, but he will never write this chapter in his book. Never. I challenge you, and I challenge him. This chapter will never be written in his book, my street dog family.
People may criticize the Team Unity government for a variety of things, but it is the only government thus far that has at least tried. We may argue whether it has tried hard enough, but at least it has tried. And so for the first time, for example, we get a monthly amount that flows from CBI. The question is, of course, whether that monthly amount properly reflects a percentage of the inflows. But nevertheless, we get that monthly amount that comes. And this is the first time that that has happened in a sustained way. And so we have to be thankful for that, because the people of Nevis hitherto were completely locked out.
That would be in his book, my street family. But I ask you to look out for the book. It will be a book of lies by Mark Brantley. That's my story tonight, my street dog family. And I was bound to ensure that the full story is told. But this is just part one. We will come back to part two of the Book of Lies in a subsequent program, my street dog family. I've tarried long, but now it's your turn. You may have your views about the Book of Lies, my street dog family, and the issues that I have already raised. And these issues, my street dog family, include Social Security, include the CBI, include this newfound friendship, newfound sweetheart, Mark Brantley and Terence Drew. But we know it's just a marriage of convenience. So the lines are open. The numbers are 646-829-6672 and or 869-663-6672, my straight dog family. We will go to the lines anytime now, but I want to implore you as usual, before we do such, to respect others. And of course, to achieve that, you must first respect yourselves. Let us try to be fair to all concerned, and let us try to build goodwill and better friendships. Let us ensure that the things we say and or do will just do that. And in saying and doing those things, let us in the process strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. It's 9:22, my straight talk family. We can get in as many calls as possible. But I had to tarry this long because this book of lies would be written. But we had to preview it even before it is written, because we know it's going to be written by a heartless man, a man who cares nothing about St. Kitts and Nevis, and all he cares about is himself. At 9:23, let's go to the lines. Call you live.
Mr. Curtis, good night.
How are you, my dear brother, the Bible man? You're batting number one.
The Bible man here is giving God thanks.
We all do, we all do.
At Psalms 107 said, Oh, give thanks unto the Lord for his good.
His mercy endureth.
His mercy endureth forever. He said, let the redeemed of the Lord say so, who have been redeemed from the hands of the enemy. Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High
shall abide
under the shadow of thy mighty.
Yes.
I will say to the Lord, he is my refuge, my fortress. In God will I trust. So he shall deliver me from the snares of the fowler and from the noise of the pestilence. Mr. Patrick, tonight I come and straight talk to speak, thus said the Lord. Patrick, I am telling you tonight, God been good to me. And when anything happens, God takes care of me. But then there was a time I was in Bastille. And as a man of God, and as a Bible man, I don't interfere people. So one day, when I was there, a young man went and told somebody right in front of me, because he wouldn't interfere with my girlfriend. But to make a lot. He done couple days after, he went into a rental and he was driving in a rental and he ended up on a boat in Bastille. And from the time he see me, he hang his head. I said, me do one joke. I said, me put God on the picture of the word of God. No weapon that form against thee shall prosper. And every tongue that rises up against thee in judgment shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servant of the Lord. And the righteousness of me, I always tell people, be careful who you and I shock you tonight. Oh, God, deliver me.
Okay, my brother. Thanks.
But I am not going to be too long.
Thanks a lot.
Mr. President,
yes.
Have a pleasant night.
Have a pleasant
night. God, look after me.
Yes, yes.
And the word of God said, the last thing I'm going to say, the word of God said, if the righteous be careful, be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner shall appear? Good night, Mr. Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you for your intervention and your biblical verses. Really, we are all lovers of the Psalms. But let's go back to the lines. Let's take this caller.
Patches.
Yes, you are live, my Straight Talk family.
Good night to all the listeners.
Good night, sir.
And good night to the wonderful people of the Federation of St. Nevis. Patches, as I heard you say in your observation tonight, St. has 30 murders and probably will progress to 31. My commentary and speculation on that, those murders. Yes, the current Prime Minister, in his time, that's what it is. But I don't believe those murders lie on the Prime Minister. Okay? Remember one time when I used to be a frequent caller, I jumped to your aid to clarify where they were saying we believe all these murders were happening in St. Kitts will lie on the Prime Minister. And I stand for correction. The murders that happen in St. Kitts lie to the murderers itself and their group and their vindictiveness, their jealousy, and I will consider their thieviness if there is a robbery and someone dead. But that lies on the murderers, the perpetrators.
Okay.
So, I will not stand for the Prime Minister to get his beat up in that sense, in that spirit. But I can say there is something could be done in respect to clamp down on those criminal activities, whatever they are. So I will stand in defense for him in that respect. I am neither PAM, Labour, CCM, NRP, PLP. I deal with another one, and I am dignity for the poor, and dignity for the needy. So I will stand for defense about that.
Okay.
Okay? All the Prime Minister has to do is to clamp down on these crimes because we don't want another one. We all don't want need another one. So, yes, he may make mistake, he made mistake. All is due for correction, and I hope he will learn by all these commentary, criticism. We all learn by mistake.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
My dear brother. Well, that's what Straight Talk is all about, you know. Everyone is entitled to his or her opinion. So if that's your opinion, well, we just respect it. Patches, did you attend the Independence Parade on Independence Night or morning? Well, I was most embarrassed, and many others as well felt the same, to see the military band drum major disrespecting himself, the governor, and all the other attendees, dancing and walking up himself on an official parade. It was disgraceful, to say the least. Foreign military officials were present, and one could easily imagine what they were thinking. They fully well know that if Governor Sebastian was the governor, nothing like that would have happened or taken place. So why the military's high command permitted this to show up our first female governor general? Shame, 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 reads that email. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, I want to thank you for holding your live. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're live.
Good night.
Yeah, turn off your equipment or your radio.
Okay, let me move.
Please, yes. I want the whole world to hear.
Yes, the whole world will hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Right? Me is the man who told them, what the man of Mark Brantley. And you see what now? We ain't got an opposition leader. He's not posing nothing what's going on right now in the country. Right? He's not posing nothing. A lot of things that go on, he's not coming here to nothing because he link up with them because that was Dougie, right? That is Dougie step out. You put him in or hold him to be minister out thing, you know what I mean? So that's why they're your thing. Now look here, Patches, this your boy, me tell you what's going on. Watch the man. I tell them already, and then I hear. And here over there, I walk up on a chick. You hear me? You hear me come out with everything? When last you hear the opposition leader come out with something? Huh? Is that it?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean
yeah.
No,
come out with nothing. Opposition leader come out and say something, and you see now come out with nothing. I tell them already, watch the damn man over Nevis. Boy, that is me was a big fan, but how things are going on right now, me can't take them on because my God don't work on them. And if Sean don't want to hear and see what's going on, I keep problem, like go ahead. You hear me? So they got to form back with team unity to get back in power because family members are back in their own. You hear me? That's it, me a big fan. and they can't go back in there. Let's join back up with Timothy. Timothy is the man that they tell you, so, you better be careful. Me tell you, me courage to tell you so. Me courage to tell you so. So, you better watch yourself. Okay?
Okay, courage. Thanks for your intervention. I thought for a moment I did, in fact, recognize the voice. Good night, Patches reads this email. Riddle me this. It is easier to fool people than to convince the people that they were fooled. Dr. Drew knows all he has to do is keep playing politics. It's man's intervention of manipulation reads this email. This other email reads, my Straight Dog family. Mark Brantley had a nice, colorful speech praising the Prime Minister on Independence Day. He said that the first time in 40 years of independence, Nevis never had it so good. He went on to state that the Federal Cabinet Secretary prepared an independence celebration budget for St. Kitts and Nevis. And oh, how joyous he was. And Dr. Drew, the best Prime Minister we have had. The problem with Mark is that he is a very lazy Premier, can't manage the finances of Nevis, so he is compelled to deceive Drew with his usual boastful rhetoric about Drew is the best. Mark boy, you have no shame, reads this email. This other email reads, Patches, why is this government fooling the people of this country? The Prime Minister said in the National Assembly that all persons who are disconnected from electricity and water will be reconnected immediately. And he also said that this is part of the government Independence 40 reset. 2 days after he said that, you've seen all kind of press releases in the media stating that persons must go into Skellig and sit down and work out a plan. After getting the people's hopes up that they were going to get back their electricity and water, they were suddenly disappointed and deceived again by this lying, wicked, heartless government, reads that email. This other email reads, Patches, this government likes to use words that they don't know the meaning of. Dr. Drew told the people that all whose electricity and water was disconnected will be reconnected immediately, as it is a part of his government reset plan. And now he's telling the people to go to Skellig and work out a payment plan. I want to tell Dr. Drew, stop fooling the people. Reconnect the people's water and electricity immediately and wipe off all their arrears. That's what a reset means, to start over. So you must do all you promised in the National Parliament. And I want you to remember and learn the meaning of this word reset. It means to start over, a fresh start. Okay, you can thank me later. Read this email. The AG was just on a program on Observer Radio. Reads this email. Hope you can grab a hold of it on Facebook or YouTube. The name of the program is Constitution Corner. It was said that permanent secretaries are paid higher than ministers. He pays all his personal bills. Please take that presentation by Gaston Brown with a pinch of salt. Antigua Labour Party government external bill is so high and they are not paying, so they can't get the money. Reads that email. And those are the emails I have to date, my Straight Talk family. And we would then get back to the lines. I'll take a few more calls. It's 9:38. It's 21 minutes before the 10 o'clock hour. And for those who may have just joined me, my Straight Talk family, we are looking at our thesis for tonight, A Book of Lies by Mark Brantley. And you will not find in that book of lies comments like these and threats like these made by Brantley, my Straight Talk family.
We have taken the unprecedented step of putting a deadline of Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 for a response from the Prime Minister. We shall therefore know by Wednesday whether we can achieve resolution or whether we face dissolution.
We will never find that in the book of lies. And I made the point tonight for those who may have joined me just or lately or in a tardy way, who have joined me late, I think is the proper words. And I made the point, my Straight Talk family, that our country, St. Kitts and Nevis, needs leaders who are honest, leaders that are true to the country and the jobs that they were elected to do. Not leaders who just want to manipulate everything. And that's really what Mark Brantley knows best, to manipulate people. Now, he promised, as I said, to write a book. And in his book, we have predicted, and I have previewed the book even before it is released. And I have anticipated that it will be a book of lies. Because my Straight Talk family, based on the preamble to this book, which was provided by Mark Brantley himself on a radio program, in what one can call or what can be described as the introductory and expressionary statement to this book, that explained the purpose and underlying philosophy of a fickle, unfaithful, untrustworthy character who in the 16 years of political representation has frequently changed his loyalties and his affections and turned his heels against his own leader, the late Vance Winkworth Ambry, who recruited him to the Concerned Citizens Movement, only to find out that Mark Brantley was vulnerable to sudden, unpredictable changes of mood and mind. So it should be no surprise that he turned his heel against his own Prime Minister, who gave him all that he wanted. His Prime Minister was the best thing ever, he said.
People may criticize the Team Unity government for a variety of things, but it is the only government thus far that has at least tried. We may argue whether it has tried hard enough, but at least it has tried. And so for the first time, for example, we get a monthly amount that flows from CBI. The question is, of course, whether that monthly amount properly reflects a percentage of the inflows. But nevertheless, we get that monthly amount that comes. And this is the first time that that has happened in a sustained way. And so we have to be thankful for that, because the people of Nevis hitherto were completely locked out.
And who he must thank? He must only thank Timothy Harris, because he likes to say that he sat in the cabinet for 7 years and didn't know this or didn't know that. Did he ever bring that request for an increase of $5 or $10 million to the cabinet? No. He wrote a private letter to Prime Minister Harris. Even after the budget, which he approved in the parliament, and early in January 2022, I think it was, after approving the budget, requested or demanded a $10 million increase. Mark Brantley wants to give the impression that when St. Kitts paid a double salary, he had to find money on his own to pay a double salary in Nevis. What a lie. That book will be full of lies, laced with lies. And as such, no matter its title, I have taken the liberty tonight to name that book that Mark would release a book of lies. Mark never brought his request to the cabinet, never once, my Straight Dog family. But he says all kind of things never came to cabinet. Did he bring that to the cabinet? No. My Straight Dog family, the day that money stopped, God forbid Nevis would collapse. My Straight Dog family. But he'll write this book.
I've heard a lot of chatter.
He said.
And I don't really bother with the chatter because, as I said, in the fullness of time, some book will be written and people will have an opportunity to sit and read and understand all the dynamics that were at work. The leader of NRP is out of touch. And one day, voila, handpicked. And we'll get that. That will be a chapter in my book as well in terms of who handpicked her. I know how this happened. I know these three people who were involved. And the final decision rested not in Nevis, but in St. Kitts. And the truth is going to be told because Nevisians need to understand what has happened and what was happening. The decision on the NRP leader was made in St. Kitts, not in Nevis. They were required to just rubber stamp because that decision was made on high in exchange for promised funding for the election.
My Straight Dog family, what promise he got? Because given his current relationship with Dr. Duke, also the current fiscal situation in Nevis, unless, hear this, unless things radically change, which can be expected from a character like Brantley, the author would never write, for example, that Brantley spent his whole political career fighting against the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Brantley would never write in his book that he told the Parliament, told the National Assembly, that thousands of dollars was seized from the possession of Denzel Llewellyn Douglas, who did not declare that amount of money. And he told the Parliament that Douglas could not go back to London. Yet, he met Douglas on a flight to London. Do you think he'll put that in his book?
I went to London recently, and as would be the norm, I would reach out to the Prime Minister just to say that I will be out of country. And I indicated that there was a particular meeting that I had been invited to attend, at which some UK parliamentarians would also attend. And of course, we had just been greeted with the news that the UK had imposed visa restrictions on our brothers and sisters from Dominica. And naturally, there was a concern. And so I said to the Prime Minister that I would be having this meeting. And he immediately said to me, could you raise this issue? I will go further and say that Dr. Douglas and I, quite by accident, traveled on the same flight from Miami to London. I did not know he was on the flight. I assume he did not know that I was on the flight. Because it is only upon landing in London that we were departing the plane that I saw him. and he saw me, and we engaged with each other. He was merely transiting through London. But I used the opportunity to tell him about this meeting, and he said to me that he was aware and also gave it his blessings.
My Stray Dog family, one day he will sing God Bless Dr. Jew when he gets the money he needs. Because when he was getting the money from Timothy Harris, this is how he sang, my Stray Dog family.
God bless Timothy. God bless Timothy. God bless Timothy.
He can't sing too well, but at least he sang, God bless Timothy, my Stray Dog family. It's 11 before the 10 o'clock hour. This email reads, Dear Patches, let me take this call before I go to the lines. Caller, you're live.
Yes, good night. I would like the Minister for Sport to come and tell the country why he did not sign that document for to have the T20. But that's what he's telling us is bullcrap. That's about it.
You heard what he said? Are you there, caller? Okay, well, we haven't. Perhaps the caller didn't hear me, but I believe what you're saying about to use your terms, the bull crap. I think that's what you said. Because the Minister of Sport said this, which is nothing but, to put it mildly, or to put it in a respectful way, it was nothing but nonsense. As you say, bullcrap could be accepted as well. Because, as we said, the World Cup would be played next year, June 2024. So how much time did Samuel Duggins want to prepare St. Kitts and Nevis to tender, to bid and win the bid? Because we've hosted World Cup matches, we've hosted test matches here. But this is what he said. Caller, for your information.
Well, what I could say about the World Cup next year is that the World Cup is a dynamic series of events, and we may definitely see some events here in St. Kitts, while we may not have the structured matches as some may want. We will see some activity from the World Cup here in St. Kitts. It's not a case where St. Kitts and Nevis dropped the ball, but what is required to host ICC World Cup. And the way we met our facilities and the conditions that they were in coming into office last year, and the short time frame that would have been required to get them compliant with the World Cup standard, it was just too short of a time frame. And so we had to settle for what we can achieve.
Real nonsense, because you had 2 years to prepare for that. Dear Patches, the Defense Force ban has done it again. Read this email. Last year they played the Labour campaign song, Get Rid of Them. And this year the drum major showed that he cannot use his mace, so he used his waist. It was so shameful. Imagine on an official military parade, that joker started to walk up. I walked out the park. Also, I was so upset to see how Dr. Jew destroyed the explorers just for pure politics. Hundreds of young people left disillusioned because Jew and his James Sutton are too political and do not understand country above self, as our motto reads this email. Good night, Patches. I must continue to commend you for keeping the fire burning on those issues that are destroying St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts now know that Mark Brantley is an enemy of the people. He's a traitor. He's no secessionist and he's no federalist. St. Kitts people now know him, and Nevis people's eyes are now open to him and his ways. The best gift Mark can offer our nation as we celebrate our 40th anniversary of independence is to get out of office. Mark's fancy speeches are not even original, but a watered-down attempt to sound like he is genuine, reads this email. This other email reads, "Good night, Patches. I am somewhat confused. What is PM Drew really doing every time people in St. Kitts ball? He takes Social Security money to shut them up, taking government money to give irresponsible people who let their bills turning up only to use the said money to pay back the government. This makes no sense at all," reads this other email. "Good night, Mr. Liburd. Marco Polo is Dondo, the biggest liar. He and his advisor are breakers. They mash up everything they touch and are bad spenders," reads this email. Patches, you don't have the tape to play with Mark in the National Assembly calling upon Prime Minister Harris to hand over Douglas to Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister of England. This is what he said. "Prime Minister, I hope when Boris called for him in England, you will not hesitate to send him. Brantley is just a nasty, dangerous liar. Very selfish. Look what he did to Pam and Sean. Took the opposition leader and the senatorial nominee. Greedy and worthless," reads this email. And I believe, yes, I recall, yes, when he said he will hand Douglas over to Boris. I believe it was, not I believe, I know it was in the same presentation. I believe, I don't believe I can find that tonight, my Straight Dog family, but I'll give you this, is what he said.
They say a passenger traveling outbound from Gatwick to Dubai on Emirates EK010 was detained with a large amount of cash. The passenger did not declare the cash. They ended up with a total of 78,000 US in cash, 9,000 pounds in cash, and 2,000 EC. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs for this country, here's where I'm concerned. They say that the money was seized under the provisions of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. Mr. Speaker, I have not been known to come in this house with foolishness, you know. I don't practice that. Serious matter. Because you see, Mr. Speaker, all of this was happening. When all of this was happening, and I said to myself, well, I wonder who this passenger was. Who could be this passenger? Who they're talking about? And here what they said, the passenger with the cash was identified through his passport as Mr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas. They didn't say Junior. They didn't say Junior. They said the passenger with the cash was identified through his passport as Mr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas.
You know, my Straight Dog family, before he was making a lot of noise about the passports, number of passports, but he doesn't say that or mention that anymore. And that won't be in his book of lies. This would not be in his book of lies.
Our Prime Minister, for his part, has steadfastly refused to provide any information to our people as to the numbers of passports issued or the countries from whence applicants are being drawn.
He will not mention that in his book of lies, and he won't mention that to Dr. Drew as well. Good night, Patches, reads this email. Both Mark and Joe are a threat to our country. We can see through them that they are all about themselves and their close families. So ashamed. Voters' remorse. I want back team unity, reads this email. And as we wind down tonight's program, my Straight Dog family, I would perhaps take one more call as I wrap tonight's programming. But you may have joined me late, and tonight we focus on a thesis that I titled A Book of Lies. A Book of Lies, I should say, by Mark Brantley. Because he made this pronouncement on a radio program. And perhaps I'll take this and make this my final call, but I'll get back to that caller. You're live. Hello, caller?
Hello.
Yes, you're live.
Hello. Patrick.
So.
Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You see where everything leads up to now?
Yes, you're correct.
Mark is a blatant liar. You see where he leads up to?
True.
Huh?
True. Yes, sir.
Huh?
I know him very well.
I tell them so. I don't lie down and tell you the man. The man not play with it. See what you got Sean them? Huh? You see what I tell you?
Mm-hmm.
You see what you got Sean them? Okay. You got it. This is courage talking. Right? Sean put himself in a hot water and it is right now not studying. So even if you think you got to get and you question now to get back in there, right? Because everybody gets fed up with what Pam do, right? Let Mark Brantley lead down the wrong road. So see what's going on now. That me know with them now. Me with Timothy right now. So they get wet. Okay, see you.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your intervention and for your courage. Well, that's your name, courage, right? To speak up and say your mind. But we address many issues in conjunction with the Book of Lies. And we also made the point about the crime, the rampant and escalating crime in St. Kitts. Murder number 22, all told for 2023, from January to this present time, 22 murders. From August 2022, under Drew, 30 murders. But a young man was gunned down hours after Drew made his presentation at the 78th session at Unga. And he placed responsibility for the guns. He never told us that the U.S. have given us Coast Guards. He promised to get a radar. So there must be efforts made to intercept these guns and intercept this human trafficking as well. But here's what he said at the UN.
We aspire to create a society where our people can live in safety and security. However, we are plagued by the scourge that is the proliferation of illicit and untraceable weapons flowing into our region. We cannot win this fight against the guns on our own. International cooperation is necessary if we are to ensure the protection of our societies and our people.
And yes, my straight talk family, he did in fact said as well that it required a scientific approach.
I went to a symposium as the Prime Minister, and also as the Minister of National Security in Trinidad, where we sought to look at crime and violence from a public health perspective. It is a broad concept, but is a concept that has been well studied scientifically and will deliver results. As I speak, my advisor, Dr. Patrick Martin, would have met with the press to further explain what this is. And the task force has been put together for us to deal with it. An aspect of it is an all-society approach. But this time, we will apply the scientific approach to it so that we can achieve what we want to achieve.
Sadly, my straight dog family, since taking office and assuming the role of Minister of National Security, Dr. Jew has disengaged the Major General Saunders, who did so well during his tenure here as National Security Advisor. And he has now engaged his once political advisor, Maureen Webber, as an highly paid consultant. And she, along with his permanent secretary, Naima Hazel, have continued to tinker with the peace initiative. I haven't heard much about the new NSA National Security Advisor, my good friend Lionel Usi Rollins. But I guess no doubt we'll hear about him. The facts are the quote-unquote Elevate program is purely academic and has not improved the crime situation, which they continue to deal with in a casual or desultory way, meaning that it is lacking a plan. So the only result you'll find in the nigh 14 months of Dr. Joe is 30 murders in this country. Most of them, 22 or 24, are gun-related. And the latest murder was reported by ZIZ's Mervyn Thompson. She said this. She said this about the latest murder on Saturday the 23rd, was it? Saturday the 23rd of September. And this, my straight talk family, is not good news for the Federation. I dare tell you.
The police are investigating another homicide. In a note to media, they said, quote, just before 10 p.m. on Saturday, September 23rd, the police received notification from the JNF General Hospital that a man presented there with gunshot injuries. The male, who was later identified as Deonja Finley of St. Peter's, received emergency treatment but later died, end quote. Investigations into the cause of his injuries are therefore ongoing.
My straight dog family, as we wind down tonight's programming, our thesis, A Book of Lies by Mark Brantley, sought to provide, from a perspective of his current relationship with Dr. Drew, also the current fiscal situation in Nevis. It is anticipated that the author would never write, for example, that he spent his whole political career fighting against the Labour Party. A chapter would document that as leader of the opposition, he represented the current administration at a meeting in London. he said upon the request of Dr. Drew. He will also write about meeting former Prime Minister and now Minister of Foreign Affairs, Denzel Douglas, on the flight to London, who he said was aware that Dr. Drew or that Mark Brantley was attending the meeting. But Brantley would also include a big geothermal lie to say that he did not know that energy was being developed, that geothermal energy was being developed on St. Kitts and was confirmed in St. Kitts. And we made the point, my Straight Talk family, that his premier then, the late Vance Amory, may his soul rest in peace. The country misses him so much. But Amory allayed the fears that both resources on St. Kitts and on Nevis would complement each other. And in closing, I asked the question, because Nevis is developing geothermal energy, justifies that St. Kitts should not? So if Nevis raised pigs, we should not raise pigs on St. Kitts? Come on. Those are pertinent questions. And we'll speak on another occasion about the bridge to Nevis as well, my Straight Talk family. But I want to say that I can go on and on, but his book would not include his blessings on Timothy Harris. Mark Brantley's book would not include his praises for Timothy Harris. Remember he said this?
Dr. Harris, congratulations, sir, on 5 years as a brilliant Prime Minister and steward of this country. And to my colleagues, I believe that we have all sought to do the best that we can, and that the successes that we've had could not have been possible without you and your support, without the grace of God and His support. And I would ask that we continue in that vein to stay steadfast, on course. We are on the right track with the right leadership to take this country forward and upwards.
And that was months before he connived to undermine what the people demanded, a team unity administration. But his book of lies will not include such praises. But he's broke. His country is broke. He has run them into an $500 million debt. He hasn't paid the Social Security contributions he has deducted from civil servants in Nevis, and owes the Social Security $9 million. Jew won't talk about that because Brantley has latched on to him. But my Straight Talk family, look out for the book. It would be a book of lies. That's my story tonight, and I am not going to change it. I want to thank Almighty God for guiding our conversation tonight, as always. I want to thank you, the listeners. I want to thank all those on social media, on my Facebook and YouTube platforms, those who send emails, those who called. Remember, you are the ones who make Straight Talk, and for that reason, I say a big thank you. I am Ian Patches Liburd, and God's willing, we will connect on Thursday for another edition of Straight Talk. Until we connect at that time, be good to yourselves, be good to all whom you meet. remember to stay peaceful. Be at peace with your God. Be at peace with yourself. And be at peace with the world. And remember that whatever your mind conceive, that you will achieve, my Straight Talk family. But first of all, you must believe. So when you wake up in the morning, thank God for the morning light. Thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Talk family, keep moving on. Bye-bye. Until we connect on Thursday.